more pennies. I just told someone this out, thought, feel free to text me. Apparently I missed. I feel like I'm entering the cockpit of a plane. You know, where's the checklist? So strange. Okay. No worries. All right, and you in the back hear me? Is this loud enough? No. Is that better?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. When I start breathing, let me know. Oh. You know, I really need new glasses. I really can't see through my computer. So my name is Tendron. For those of you who may not have seen me before, so, welcome. So I'm going to get started by just taking a few minutes to settle our minds here. So if you're familiar with following your breath, so we just want to sit up straight, kind of gently close our eyes or keep them gently open. And just take a few deep breaths. And then just bring your attention to your body sitting here. You know, really feel your chair pressing against the body, the cushion pressing against the body, the temperature of the room on your skin. And then gently ask your mind to join you in the room, leaving behind all the busyness of getting here, all the planning for what you're going to do next. Settle that mind on your breath. Just notice the inflow and outflow of the breath. Thoughts arise, just let them pass you by. No need to follow them. Just bring your mind back to your breath. try to recall the reason you came here this morning. And using that reason, just try to create a positive intention so that you can use your time well. Bring our attention to the four immeasurables. And the four immeasurables is a prayer we say. And the four immeasurables are referring to four states of mind. Immeasurable, equanimity, love, compassion, joy. So it's on page 34.
Thank you.
May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from happiness that is free from suffering. And may all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. So this is sort of a crux, you could say, of the big mind. That is the topic of these Sunday teachings. And these are the foundations for it. So the four measurables are expressing all but the last one. So when we talk about great love, great compassion, universal equanimity, we're really talking about the seeing all living beings as the same, and that we wish them the same, in that they're all wish to be happy and wish to be free from suffering. And great love is wishing all living beings to be happy. Great compassion is wishing all living beings to be free from suffering. The great intention is what makes it big mind. This is where you take some of the responsibility, that, I will cause this to happen. So it's a really big mind. And most of us don't start here. So, but that's where we want to aim towards, is that not only do we want to create these states of mind, but we want to go beyond the wish to making it happen, helping it happen, being part of the solution, so to speak. So, and this is really what the Buddha taught us, the sole basis for equanimity, is that we want the same things. Doesn't mean we all have the same skills or the same lifespan, or even that we look the same, or that, he includes even, all insects and amoebas and everything that has a mind. Nothing wants pain. Everything, scientists show this, everything withdraws away from what they perceive to be harm. Even amoebas move away. So it's this universal quality of the mind, is that it wishes to be happy and it doesn't want suffering. So it's nothing more than this. It doesn't require anything more than this. There doesn't have to be anything else equal. It's just that our wish for all beings to be happy, it's based on this idea that we're all the same. that make sense to anybody? Okay, so with this idea of big mind, the first step in developing it is developing, pure compassion, pure love for ourselves. It is from that idea of, do I mind? Go for it. Is it not working? Freedom. Free mic. Okay? No?
No use?
Yes.
Yes.
It's just that when it's this close, I can hear myself breathing. Very selfish reason. Okay. All right. Okay? Okay. Oh, peace within ourselves. Yeah, that's where we have to go. All right. So, it's, so how do we do this? It's about acknowledging that we suffer and going beyond just acknowledging it, but in allowing ourselves to feel the depth of our suffering, and then allowing ourselves to deeply feel the wish to be free from it. Not to just set it aside, but to go into that place of suffering, acknowledge that it's there, acknowledge that it is a miserable state of being, and that you want to be free of it. Because it's from that state of mind, that capacity to feel that within yourself, that you can truly turn your mind to someone else, and when they are suffering, really want them to be free of it. Because so often, when we turn our minds to other people's suffering, that sense of detachment, that it's not us, keeps us from really being sincere. We don't think it does. But if we're not really there with the person, understanding how bad it is to suffer, our wish to be, for them to be free of the suffering lacks force. It just doesn't have the power. Aren't as likely to be willing to see if we can be of help, or to just even share it. You know how hard it is to share the space with someone who's suffering when you know you can't do anything about it? There's nothing you can do at all, you just have to be there with them. That's a very hard space to hold. And it's true for ourselves. This is why we tend to not do it, is it's hard to hold that space. But if we develop the capacity to hold it, then we can truly have compassion for ourselves. And this can fuel our search for ways to be happy and how to abandon these states of mind that actually cause us to suffer. It comes from that place of deep suffering. So we can't really run away from that if we hope to make progress to really changing our minds and helping ourselves be happier and be more at peace. I have no idea what's next. Maybe I'll look on my PowerPoint and see. I'm not so surprised. All right, I'm not ready. All right. So at the same time, we want to, so there's this great compassion. We also want to develop this great love, this sincere wish that we want ourselves to be happy. We really have to explore, what does that mean? We sort of don't have to explore what does suffering mean. But we really do need some extra help with what is happiness, because we can get swayed by the meeting desire and equating getting what we want with happiness, which usually the Buddha said, if you look closely, is actually just relief from some state of want that we're not comfortable with. So very much like, going to the beach and enjoying the warmth of the beach and then getting over it, You're sitting there and you're going, oh yeah, it's hot now. And so you jump into the ocean and it's like, oh, this is happiness. This is wonderful. Such pleasure. And then you get cold, So you jump out, sit in the sun, and this is what we do all day long. And the Buddha said, this is not happiness. This is, swapping unpleasant for pleasant, unpleasant for pleasant. And it can't last. It doesn't last. It's not in the nature to last. It is simply going to change because it's just, a physical sensation. So we're basing our happiness on this, hungry, not hungry, hungry, not hungry, hot, not hot, not, blah, 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 that kind of thing. And what happiness, the Buddha said what happiness can be is, first of all, the complete absence of suffering. And that's kind of hard to imagine. But it's helpful to try to imagine. Because then it sort of outlines what you really see as happiness. What is freedom of suffering? Is it just freedom from physical pain? Is it just freedom from, physical discomfort? Is it just freedom from the obnoxious neighbor? Obviously, anybody who's been here more than once knows, I like freedom from worry, because I'm an anxious person. So to me, freedom from worry would be nice. I would include that in my list. So we want to look more deeply into what happiness really is, so that we can have lasting happiness or a sense of peace of mind, no matter what we're getting out here. Because what we're getting out here, how much control do we have over that? Zero. It's sort of like we have all these beliefs. Oh, if I work hard, then I'll get all my physical needs met. Is that true? No. It might be true. It might seem true, when you happen to be getting something in return for your hard work. But many people work hard and don't get enough to meet their needs. It's just, it's not a mathematical equation that works. So our peace of mind has to come from within, because there's no guarantee of what's going to come out here. So we want to look at our suffering, allow ourselves not to shield ourselves from that suffering. We want to investigate what is happiness. And then we need to really work on this idea of equanimity, that we're all the same. That's what everybody is doing. Everybody's trying to be happy. Everybody's trying to be free from suffering. We don't have any common ground on what that will look like. So we get into there are conflicts, big conflicts, little conflicts, power struggles. And those generally revolve around this belief that somehow other people have something to do with our happiness or suffering, instead of our states of mind, our habits of mind, how we respond to conditions. And so we really want to investigate that clearly. And when we do this, we want to do it not at the expense of our self-care. So when we look at ourselves, like last week we were talking about the need for gentleness, the need for precision, and we don't lie to ourselves about, how our state of mind is doing. And we need to be open to letting go, of different states of mind. Figuring out what's not skillful and letting that go, or at least letting go of the grip. Lightening it a little bit. Okay, so now we're gonna do, I know you're thrilled to hear this, a little guided meditation. Which one do we want you to do first? Okay. So again, just try to be comfortable. Don't worry too much about your posture. Comfort is a little more important, not a lot more important, just a little. All right. Gently close your eyes or keep them gently open. So really, our spiritual paths are coming from transforming our inner being. Because it's our inner being that directs what we say and what we do. The nature of our minds is like a space of awareness. It's fundamentally pure. There's nothing that makes it better, and there's nothing that makes it worse. It's just a state of awareness. But just like the sky, it can be full of clouds, of thoughts, mental images, emotions. But this state of awareness is not changed by the content. So just try to get a sense of this space of awareness, cloud-like thoughts just passing through. This state of awareness is like an ocean, with the thoughts like waves. The waves at the surface don't affect the deep stillness of the ocean. And we can train our mind to be aware of that stillness. all the time. And to realize that happiness is found there. Peace is found there. So that's the first stage in spiritual development, to realize that happiness is found within the stillness of the mind. The second stage is to fill all of our experiences with loving kindness, with appreciation, to wish that everything experiences harmony and happiness. We can start with just the cells of our body, wishing that every cell be healthy, undisturbed, in harmony with all the other cells. All the cells supporting each other. So we can send ourselves peace. And then bring our attention to all the spots of tension. And let our breath ease the tension. And again, bring our attention to our body sitting here, knowing that there are other bodies sitting here, and also wishing them well, wishing them peace. Now, gently bring your attention someone, make a point. One's allowed to stand up. Make sure you know the name of the person you're
Yes. Remember your name.
That's right. I remember you too.
Hi, John. Glad you made it back.
Yes, good to see you. You popped into your meditation, so I opened my eyes and there. My eyes are there. Oh, good to see you.
Cecilia.
No,
I remember you work at a restaurant.
Yeah.
Stretch. All right. Okay. So. I just had to use it. I just couldn't help it. Okay. So it's always helpful when you're starting to think about compassion for yourself, thinking about your suffering, allowing a glimpse into the suffering, to start with loving kindness kind of meditation for yourself. You know, kind of start there. And you can say different things to yourself, like, you know, that you're stepping back, you're giving yourself some distance from your suffering, just so first you can see what it is. You know, we want to not, I don't know, if you're in any kind of crisis or you're having a tough time, sometimes when you do this, you can feel, I mean, I know I can feel like I'm going to drown. If I let any of the suffering in, I might drown. So you want to ease your way into feeling like, you know, you will support whatever comes up, you know, and you will back off if you need to, you know, because it's not about self-torture, it's about self-compassion. It doesn't mean we don't need to look and that we always back off, but we do want to do it at a pace that we can tolerate looking. It's sort of like sometimes when you're watching the news, all the news just is so distressing that you have to turn it off. You just can't bear another second. That's how I feel about the election. I can't bear another second of listening to anything about it. It's, you know, so we want to go gently. But we want to go. Because without looking, without assessing our situation, we can't move forward. Because it is our looking at our suffering that will help us have the determination to look at the cause of our suffering. To really kind of be able to see what part do we play in our suffering. That it's not just that the world's hard or life is hard, all those things are true. But it's our interaction with the world, you know, that we need, that we, you know, can really use as our tools to change our reactions to the world and to ourselves. We are so hard on ourselves. It's one of those ironies. On one hand, it's sort of like the secret to happiness is cherishing others, but wait a minute, you have to look at yourself almost obsessively. So this is sort of the same thing, you know. It's like you have to be honest with where you are. You have to be honest with the types of negative states of mind that arise. You know, you have to acknowledge that these things exist within you. But we don't need to grasp onto them as if that's who we are. They're just habits, and habits can be changed. They're just habits of mind. And then most things are habits of mind, let's face it. You know, we may have to learn to drive a car, but if we want to pay attention to driving a car, it's our mind. You know, we have to want to go somewhere. We want to have to get in the car, you know, all those kind of things. We want to have to follow the laws of the streets of the road so that we get there safely, and also so we don't get so many tickets we're not allowed to drive anymore, you know. So it's all a mental thing. It's just made up of a string of physical actions as well, but it all starts with the mind, and everything we do is like that. So we need to know where we are. We may need to write down something that we see or read, you know, something that inspires us to take a few minutes to acknowledge our suffering. Because this is one of those things that's really easy to put off. Unless we're in crisis, and then we can't put it off. But it can help if you're not in crisis right now. If there are people in the world that aren't in crisis right now, it's a good time to start. So you have practice ahead of time, because crisis will come. Are you done?
It's easier than writing.
Oh, listen, I tell you.
I just took a picture of it. And I can refer back to that all week
I just
long.
didn't want to change it until you were done.
Thank you.
Okay. So we start with ourselves, seeing where we are. And so we can look at different aspects of ourselves. You know, we need pep talks. So in between seeing our suffering, we need to see ways we can be kind to ourselves. So the practice of bodhisattvas, beings who wish all beings to be happy, be free of suffering, and who take responsibility for helping people get there. Generosity is the first practice that they try to perfect. So there are many ways to practice generosity. This does have a point. It will be clear, I hope, sometime. Okay. So there's the material gifts, and then there's protection from fear, and then there's the gift of the Dharma. And Dharma is just the Sanskrit word for truth. It's what leads to happiness. Okay? So, we'll go back to one. So what you want to think about, and the idea of self-care, is how are you generous with yourself? You know, do you give yourself, you know, the basic things that you need? Take care of the, you know what, shelter, food, exercise, meditation. So do you give yourself the gift of time? So most of us can use this kind of image, or list, or whatever, as a way to see what you already do well, which is probably give to others. You know, you probably give to, you know, your money to causes, hopefully the one we're sitting in. So, you know, you probably bring sick friends flowers or food, you know, things like that. You probably give to clothing drives and food drives and coat drives and all those things. So that's good news, and you want to look at those too and rejoice that you do all those things, because those are qualities we want to expand, you know, and cultivate and do more of. Those are great things. We just don't want to leave ourselves out of our generosity picture, you know. And it does take time to take care of our minds, just like the body. or we exercise our body, or give it the right food, or cook for it, you know, all these different things we do for the body, work to provide the clothing and whatever else. I'm sorry, it's making noises at me. Okay. If this thing shorts out and I just go, you know, be amused first. Maybe consider 919, unless it looks like the brain is fried, then maybe not so much. Okay? So, but we want to look at ways in which we can be generous in our self-care, not stingy and miserly. Okay? So that's a good place to start. Protection from fear. This is a really important part of being self-compassionate. You know, protection from fear, you know, is things like saving lives, like, you know, you move the turtle out of the road, you stop for ducks walking across the road. You know. But we need to also be aware when we're afraid. And not do things like, well, that's stupid. You know, get over yourself. You know, and because it doesn't, you know, it doesn't matter that fear has arisen. The point is that there's fear there. And so just like, I love this image. Thich Nhat Hanh used to say that when you hear a crying baby, you don't go in the room and have a chat. You pick it up and hold it until the crying is subdued. We need to be able to do this for ourselves, you know? Because the moment will pass. And so we want to notice that too. We don't want to feed the fear by giving it all sorts of reasons why, yes, you should be afraid. That doesn't help. It's more that we want to, you know, just support it and say, okay, don't worry, not going to abandon you. You know, and let the moment pass. And when it does pass, then you can examine it and say, okay, is what I'm thinking true? Am I in danger? You know, and really explore it a little bit, but at a distance, not when it's, you know, the main state of mind that you're having. That's when you need comfort. Fortunately, all our states of mind are impermanent. All you have to do is try to meditate on the breath, and you find that out. Because it's not like you just have one thought. One thought you're not trying to follow. You have them, you know. So our thoughts, our feelings, they're all thoughts, are impermanent. So it will pass, and you want to be aware when it passes, and you don't want to feed it. But you do want to support yourself through this process and through life. What's the next one? This is another way in which we can examine the ways in which others have been kind to us. We can generate gratitude for all the teachers who taught us how to read, who taught us how to drive, who taught us how to get dressed, who taught us how to tie our shoes, all those things. You know, as well as all the things we've helped other people do. You know, we've taught others how to do things. We've had children, you've taught your children lots of things. You know, your friends. So this is another way to remind yourself of all the ways, because these are all necessary for life. I mean, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, he's the founder of these centers, with Lama Yeshe. I'm pointing behind me because I'm assuming they're there. But Lama Zopa Rinpoche, you know, we teach people that it's better not, you know, not to put Dharma books or prayer books or anything on the floors, and then people step over them, plus they're on the floor where people have been walking, because it's considered not a clean place. Rinpoche won't step over newspapers, because it contains the letters in which the Dharma is written, you know. And it's just this, it's a habit of mind of gratitude and recognizing that without these tools, we can't read the teachings. So all the things that we've been learned in our lives that have helped us take care of ourselves, bathe ourselves, dress ourselves, feed ourselves, get somewhere, you know, all that kind of stuff are all what helps us get here. So, you know, gratitude is helpful, but also recognizing this is a way we give to others. So what's a way that we can give the, you know, the gift of Dharma to ourselves? Show up. Yeah, show up to teachings. Listen to YouTube teachings. Read books. Meditate. Both concentration meditation and analytical meditation. Have Dharma discussions amongst your like-minded companions. Notice I'm very specific about it to have a conversation. I'm sorry. We need these things to nourish our path, you know, to help us accomplish what we're trying to accomplish. It's not a, well, it can be, but in general, going alone is not the recommended method. You know, it helps to talk to each other, to have reality checks. You know, if people here, the only Buddhist friends you have, if you're Buddhist, not everybody here is Buddhist, but you know, it's helpful sometimes when you're having kind of like, you feel like you're getting all these messages, say, from your coworkers, you know, to call a friend and say, I just need a reality check here. Am I out of my mind for wishing blah, 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 you know? We need support. And our society doesn't support us in our spiritual paths. It supports us in our, you know, please spend your money path. You know, it's very good at that. So this is a place to start when you're, you know, it's sort of this, is when you look at, like if you're writing your, you know, motivation for the day, and mine of course would say something about impatience, trying not to be impatient. You know. So I don't need to not, okay, I'm saying too many negatives. It's very Tibetan of me. So, okay. What I need to make sure I do is to be patient with myself also. You know, so we need to remember that if we have kindness within ourselves, we're more likely to be kind outwardly. So the beating up on ourselves, the yelling at ourselves, the short temper, the indifference, all of these qualities are qualities of mind we're trying to abandon. So if we're practicing them on ourselves, we're not helping. You know? So we need to give ourselves the gift of time and take the time to notice them. And then take the time to try to, you know, change that habit. Is that making sense? Any comments, questions?
How long will that take?
Oh, 3 countless eons, I think, is, no. It really is interesting to me how quickly we can change. Because it really isn't about being able to do it perfectly. It's about just actually even remembering to do it at all. And then from there, you'll probably have some success. And then that shifts a little. And then that shifts outwardly a little. And that reinforces the inward shift a little. And, you know, and it just builds upon itself. Because remember, when we've talked about things, you know, like the idea of karma increasing, which is a Buddhist idea, that our actions, that our habits kind of increase. If you're in a bad mood when you wake up and you don't try to counter that bad mood, then you might yell at somebody as soon as you get to work, or yell at the people you're driving, as you're driving your car. And then that becomes the cranky mood at the meeting, or the cranky, and just expands. Well, it's also true of when we have the right attitude, when we are treating ourselves kindly, it expands as well. So our positive actions expand just as much as our negative actions do. So it's just a matter about remembering, let's try a positive action this morning, and then try to expand from that. But all of these things still demand some of your time to think about when nothing else is going on, so that you can reinforce what it is, the person you want to be. So that you have sort of a to-do list of the mind. I didn't see you over there. Hope your trip was good. When we can let ourselves really feel compassion about how tough life has turned out to be, it's amazing how much more kindness can arise for ourselves and then for each other. Because it's this recognition, this is where equanimity comes in, this recognition that we're all the same. So everybody's bad mood is coming out of suffering and the wish to be happy. And they're not happy. So it's this, so that we can all be gentler with each other and not be demanding and have too many expectations. And come from a place of, what can I do for you, instead of, what are you doing to me? Stop talking to me that way. That we can come from a place, just to, like, when our minds tell ourselves, oh, you stupid idiot, that we can go, oh, something must be wrong if this is how I'm reacting. What's going on here? And use very kind, patient eyes to look at them. Not judgmental, you should get over it, whatever it is, to get somewhere. Does that make sense? Am I talking to people who don't do this to themselves? It seems to be a cultural phenomenon here. It may be around the world, I don't know. But I think if we do spend more time on our minds and cultivating the person we want to be and how we treat ourselves by that person we want to be, that we'll need less stuff. We'll fill our lives with more things that matter to us. We'll have better quality time with the people around us. It's an incredible investment in your life. But we do need to believe that in order to follow through on it. So this is why it's really helpful to write down what kind of person you want to be. And then start observing yourself, your mind throughout the day. And see, what are your habits of mind? And then you kind of look at the to list and see, ooh, is that going to help me get where I want to go? Or is it actually an obstacle to where I want to go? Somehow seeing things written down or photographs can help us zero in on the things that we need to cultivate, and then on the reasons for it, so that when we're a little less focused, we can still remember them. at least some of the time. But also, it's kind of, you know, when you focus on this, when you try, you know, you set an intention for your day, and then you try to all day long kind of, you know, remember it, and watch your speech, and watch your actions, and then at the end of the day, it feels pretty good. And that helps too, you know, sort of like, oh, this went kind of okay. I think I'll try that again tomorrow. You know, so it's reinforcing by itself if you're paying attention. This is why it's important to notice what you do well, in addition to what you'd like to do better. Yeah.
I've tried trying to control a little bit, or paying attention, you know, my thoughts, my reactions, and I feel like I have some type of discipline, because I guess times, you know, some time ago I didn't have that. It makes me, I feel more confident the next
Yes.
day, and I feel good, and it makes it easier for me to want to do it the next day, and the next day.
Yeah. Exactly. This is like any habit. Anything that we do, somewhere I've got that little thing about, you know, maybe it's at the very end. Whoops. Oh, that's how you make it go off. Okay. This is a verse from Shachi Deva's Way of Life. There's nothing that does not grow light, or easy is sometimes a translation, through habit and familiarity. Putting up with little cares, I'll train myself to bear with great adversity. Well, we may not be ready for that yet, but, you know, that's all right. But it's really true. So all the cliches about habits, you know, it's just that, you know, what we're trying to do here, just like with most habits, we're trying to pick the habits we want to develop. And these are just mental habits instead of behavior habits. But our mental habits drive our behavior habits, so that it'll have an impact on everything. So, what other obstacles do you have, you know, with, what does that say? Handle with care. You know, what gets in your way of the being kind in your mind?
For me, it's other people sometimes.
It's other people.
Because I try to be so positive, like this year has been very hard because of my mother's health condition, and she's very negative, in a way.
So
But
listening
I
to
understand her pain as well, because she has to inject herself 4 times a day of insulin, but she has always something else comes along, and I'm the one that takes her.
Okay, and I get a short story to that?
Yes.
Of just, so being around people who are negative,
Yes.
it can be kind of contagious.
It overwhelms you.
Yeah. But yes. So, anybody got any suggestions about how to deal with that?
I just consider it a challenge.
You just
I'm
consider.
I'm around I live with negative people. And I was just talking to my daughter this morning, she's not one of them, because she has to deal with them too. But I was just talking to her about how it's like a constant lesson of things that don't work, things that make you more miserable, and.
So one way is to see it as a meditation on the reasons why you don't want negative mind. I'm not kidding about that. I mean, it really can be just, oh yeah, I don't wanna sound like that. I don't even wanna sound like that in my own head. So that's one way to help yourself. And that's not judging the other people. It's saying, ooh, I don't like the way this is making me feel. So I don't want this habit. You know, because we can't change her habit. I mean, that's not, you know, that's not our job. Yeah, Peggy?
One way that I deal with it, I try to deal with it, is just to realize that that person must be suffering so much because they're that negative, and try to have compassion for them and let it go like an air bubble.
Yeah, sort of just, yes, put it in sort of a little compassion bubble and let it go by and not follow it yourself. So like, we need to not follow other people's thoughts. We need to recognize that that's their habit. We don't have to participate. Doesn't mean we don't have to be, that we can't be compassionate, or we can't stay in the same room. Sometimes we want to stay there. Other times we may need to take a break. But this is that same thing about how hard it is to be in the presence of someone suffering. When you can't do anything. Even if you think, if they just listen to me, they feel better, But, they're not listening to you. So, let go of that, that expectation's not helping. So it's this, being able to sit with other people's pain is very difficult to do.
But it's okay to remove yourself, just stay.
Yeah, you have to take a
indoors.
break from time to time, it's just, and this is another way that we can help our own minds. When we're giving ourselves a hard time, it's okay to say, okay, enough of that for right now, I need a break. If you can't do anything else, take a break, and go for a walk. It's helpful if you do things that are constructive. Turning on the TV is probably not gonna help. It may distract you, but it's probably not gonna actually help your mood. You'll probably go right back to it when you turn off the TV. Maybe if you watch humor. Laughter's pretty helpful, but I don't know. Yes?
I had a hard time dealing with people who seem to think that things are just the way they are, and things need to be a certain way, and things are done a certain way, and it's just always that way, and it needs to be that way.
See, again, now isn't this interesting? I asked what obstacles there are for you to be kind in your mind to yourself, and what do we come back to? Other people. It's other people's fault. This is a problem. This is this insistence that hold on.
Okay.
Things just have to be this way, Sean. So, this is the problem though, is that we think that our minds, our state of minds, are determined by someone else's attitude. Why? Why do we think that?
Because it's about us.
Yeah, because we think, it's sort of like, I'm gonna be unhappy now because I didn't get what I want. We need to really check up on that, because it can be really sabotage our lives. Like, especially if that's your boss. And you can spend all your time thinking, my boss is wrong, and you can hate your life because you hate your job, because you hate your boss. This is how we sabotage ourselves. Other people's attitudes are not our obstacle. We just think they are.
Last time that you shared something that really was profound and I understood. And what I understood was that you said that we kind of we're the eye, and that we think the world revolves around us, but we're just on a different spectrum. We're one side, and the other person on the other side, they might have their idea, and it's okay.
Well, it just is.
Yeah, that made sense to me.
They have their eye that they're defending for all it's worth.
It's
Yeah.
just, it's, at some point, and I guess the bottom line is that you gotta move on at some point, but it's like, I guess my tendency is dealing with people like this is to just be like, okay, for now I have to put up with this, and I'm just gonna be patient with it, so I'll keep my mouth shut and deal with it.
What are you being patient with?
With them. So I'm gonna stand myself at the same time, so that I don't
what the definition of patience is?
inflate and get upset, altogether. I want to be patient and
What is patience?
calm down,
What
slow
is-
down.
What is patience?
I'd say slow down and understand the situation.
Patience is, in this tradition, is defined as the willingness to accept the suffering that arises in your mind without wish to retaliate. Can you repeat that? Maybe. I just have to, I'm not very good at that. Okay, let's try it again. It's the wish, no, it's the willingness to accept the suffering that arises in your mind without wishing to retaliate. But there's something about what others are doing in there somewhere. When the perceived objects of harm are, that you perceive them to be harming you. And I'm not making fun, I'm sort of making fun, I don't mean to be making fun of you.
Well,
It's this attitude we have that I know I do this, that patience somehow for me has from time to time included this idea that I'll be patient until you change. I'm gonna be waiting for you to change. That it has that element in it. That somehow, I've been patient a long time waiting for you to change. When are you gonna change? Well, patience doesn't have anything to do with that. It really is about accepting what's going on. And having no need to retaliate. This patience has this idea that someone is trying to harm you. I had one teacher tell us all one day in class going, oh, when's the last time someone was actually trying to harm you? Well, probably never. It's really interesting what our perception of harm is. Move to a war zone and it'll probably change. It's just interesting that we think that somebody wanting to do things their way is harming us. It's just we need to look at these things. We need to observe these things precisely. With a little bit, step back, kind of look at it going, what's going on here? Okay, he wants what he wants. Do I want what I want? Yeah, in fact, we kind of do that at the same time. And they're different what we want. That's a problem. We just need to be able to step back and look at it. And then just assess the situation. As, it's like my stepmom used to say, you have to choose your battles, Like if it's a relationship, you have to figure out, okay. Sometimes they get to choose. Yeah.
I was going to say harm sort of depends on which side you're on too, because you look at it as they're trying to harm you, but they're actually not even caring about you. They're thinking about them, and they're probably trying to protect themselves from harm somehow.
This is what we're all doing. That's exactly right. And it's this idea that somehow, usually, if we think someone's trying to harm us in this kind of scenario, not in a war zone, it's sort of the same thing. They think you're trying to harm them by not doing what you've asked them to do. It's a really, that and it makes it very hard to hear each other because you're already convinced of some opinion about the situation. And that makes it hard. That's why you have to step back, look with gentleness, not look with this kind of thing, I'm doing something terribly wrong here or something. It's just really let's just look. Because you might be doing exactly the same thing, the two people in the interaction. And that's why humor is very helpful. But then you just, you need to have gentleness, but you also have to be precise. What really is happening here? Yep.
For me, it helped that somebody who came mentioned to think about, in my case, I'm a reactive person, and how long is it taking me to get rid of this bad habit? So maybe yes, the other person does have a bad habit, but be compassionate, because it can take that person a long time to get rid of it. And for me now, it's like, okay, Cecilia, look at yourself. It's taking forever. Yes.
This is the freedom that comes from looking inward instead of outward. Because you actually have some control over your side. And you will see change. If you keep looking outward to see if they will change, you have no control over that. You will have no sense of power. You will develop no confidence because you're making it all about them. Yeah.
I have a quick story. I decided recently that drinking alcohol is not good for me, and I'm gonna stop. But my family is full of drinkers. They celebrate with that, and you know the
Yeah, I
holidays
come
are
from
coming
New
up.
Orleans. I really don't.
Yeah. Okay. And so they're always offering drinks and talking about what we're going to be drinking and things like that. And so I said today to Ellen, I'm like, I gotta tell everybody that I'm not drinking, and make sure that they're aware so this holiday is easier on me. And then I'm like, wait a second, maybe that's not really the way to go, and it's exactly what we're talking about. And
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, that's good. And this is the kind of realizations we need to have, is just recognizing that if we expect other people to make us the center of their universe, you're gonna have a very long wait. You know, and also the ways in which our putting ourselves in the center of everybody's universe, how that is an obstacle. You know, these are just, I mean, this is why a sense of humor is so important, because it's kind of funny. You know, it's like that thing about, you think somebody's all mad at you and they haven't even noticed you're there. Because we're all caught up in our own stuff. So we filter everything as if it's from our point of view. But it's not, it's from their point of view. Our stuff's from our point of view. So it's important to be able to recognize that. Not give yourself a hard time about it, that's what everybody's doing. But recognizing that it's limiting. That we'll have more freedom if we just realize the world's hopefully big enough for all of us. And that it's this our common ground that's going to bring us together, not our differences. And that our differences are relatively small. They may seem huge because we may not look at the world the same way. But we're all trying to be happy and not suffer. And so sometimes it's just helpful, even when you're yelling at yourself, to remember that. I'm just trying to be happy, and I don't know what I'm doing yet. I may never know what I'm doing. Kind of thing, to be a little lighter about it, and lighter for each other. Just this, and it can really change things if in a moment when you're having one of those conflicts, when you're, is to really step back, at least mentally, and go, this person is not trying to hurt me. What am I not hearing here? Let me just try to get the facts straight. Yes?
You see, so that's great in the context of other people. I think I got that part, right? Particularly with like patience. For me, patience equals patient. That person is suffering. That's why it's triggering
Right,
me.
that's a great
And
way.
that's why I need to be patient, because it's triggering. That's a whole thing. I get it, right? But here's where, going back to your original question.
Yeah. Yes, about your own mind.
My own mind is my own worst enemy in this regard. Showing that self-compassion, getting to that spot where I can hit that cushion willingly and openly. This has been coming up in my relationships lately. Commitment and trust. How can I trust what's on the other side? How can I trust what's going to be there? How can I let go with that trust? In other traditions, there's a thing called faith, where you get to take that leap into the abyss. Right?
Such a strange phrase.
Right.
Okay.
The abyss with the
Okay,
spirit.
so when you say, how can you trust what's on the other side of what?
Well, on the other side of practice, on the other side of
Okay.
taking the risk of self-evaluation, of
Okay.
listening.
Well, part of it is looking at what is that fear. What is the fear of what you're going to find? What is it you think you're going to find?
Right, yes,
and examine if there's any truth to it at all.
Right.
Because we really do need to dismantle it. We have sort of created this idea of ourselves as monsters, sort of saints and monsters. We're either full of ourselves or totally loathing, full of self-loathing, and we need to really examine those things are so extreme, and to be able to go, okay, like I know for myself, it's that fear of vulnerability, that really fear of, If I see just how vulnerable I am, I won't be able to hack it, you know, it's just too scary. Well, it doesn't matter whether I'm defended or not, I'm already that vulnerable. It doesn't matter if I pretend I'm not. That's just a lie. So that's already here. So I might as well not worry about it, because all the things I've done to try to protect myself from being vulnerable have failed. It doesn't work. You know, I get hurt if I give my heart away, I get hurt if I don't. So I might as well do what I'd rather do, which is give my heart away. You know? So we want to look at what are we so afraid of? Like I said, you know, like sometimes we're afraid we're going to drown. So we do have to pace ourselves. But we also want to look at what is it that we're afraid of? And to see, you know, lay it out there. And then examine the validity of it. Is it true? And does my attitude change anything about it? You know, it's like me, yes, I hate the fact that I'm powerless and vulnerable. I am at the world's mercy. I can easily be killed. I can easily be raped. I can easily be squashed by a car. Yep, and I hate it. But pretending that that's not true doesn't protect me from any of that. That's all still true. This is sort of the truth of suffering, and we just have to look at it. This is what we're all up against. Whatever our fears are, some of them are true. It's true. We might get sick and die tomorrow. You know? No one may ever have sex with us again. That may happen. I mean, we have to just look at what is our fear. And then say, okay, if that comes true, can I never be happy again? You know, we have to look at the validity of it. Sorry, that was the only idea that I could come up. I can't imagine why that would come to mind. Choice helps, you know. Anyway, all right, now I'm embarrassed. Okay. All right, so.
So that seems to be the crux of the difficulty in that is, right, this acceptance of our vulnerability, the acceptance of the truth ultimately. So crossing that Rubicon, right, of getting to that other side, is that, so the three things that we just talked about, right, that for me, as I start to look at it all, that in itself becomes overwhelming.
Yeah.
All these things.
Yep, yep.
So approaching it, right? I mean, I just wrote down, it's all just about hitting the cushion, right? Just get to the cushion, then you can start messing with all this stuff.
Yeah, and when that first sensation of vulnerability comes up, it's really helpful to hold yourself there. You know, be the person that's holding the crying baby. You know, and I mean that seriously. I don't mean that, like we're babies or something. I mean, but it's that scary. I mean, that's the reality of the truth of suffering, is it's dreadful. And we want to be able to support ourselves knowing that, okay, I can back off from this exercise when I need to. But for me, I have to do a lot of surrendering. I have to surrender to that truth. That yes, that is scary. It's, and that everybody's facing this fear. Because this fear exists for everybody. They may not feel it the same way I feel it, but it is the truth for everybody. And this is where we have that compassion for everybody. I mean, isn't that just terrible?
Terrible?
Yeah, that we're that vulnerable. And that it's not only that we're vulnerable, it is true we can be squashed. You know? That's true. But we have to decide who we want to be, even though that's true. And for me, of course, the fact that things are empty, this is where the Buddhist path really helps me. Because there is another side. You know, there is a cessation of suffering. So really examining emptiness and the fact that things do not exist the way they appear to be. I don't exist the way I appear to myself to be. But this, this idea, but it doesn't, that my vulnerability also has a story I've written on top of it that makes it much worse than the fact that this body's impermanent. That this heart can be wounded.
I go to my failings.
Other than your failings?
I go to my failings, yes.
Because sometimes that makes us feel powerful. It's my fault.
So you have to have patience with yourself.
Yeah, you have to have patience for yourself. You have to see yourself as the patient.
Yeah,
Yes.
Something what he was sharing about, I kind of was thinking about this week, and something along those lines, and I started thinking about it, and I said to myself, well, if I take risk, or if I do certain things, take actions or inactions, whatever happens, it's an experience, and those experiences serve a purpose. It's what I do with those experiences, whether I make whether I feel make it negative or positive, so like.
Yeah,
so
everything becomes a practice. And we can do that the same with our internal mind that happens. That when it arises, it's that recognition, here I go again. Is it useful?
So if I get my heart broken, it's
Yeah.
it's okay.
Yes, well, exactly. So you can use it all, yes.
Yeah, so is the achievement of metta contingent on vulnerability? It seems like it is.
Yes, yes. It's this idea that to truly be able to have this universal compassion, this universal love, we have to know what the suffering it is that we want people to be free from. We want to know, that it takes that self-awareness that we're all in the same boat. It's that attitude, So now, the Buddha also taught there's a cause of this suffering, and that cause is our negative states of mind, and our ignorance about how things exist. And so that, working on those things, looking at those is another way to give ourselves a gift of Dharma, meditating on those. So we don't want to just stop with the truth of suffering. That's not enough. We want to know about that there's a cause and that there's an end to suffering if we quit creating the cause of suffering, which is the path. So that's why there are 4 truths in Buddhism, not just the truth of suffering, because that's not enough. Because if that's all there is, don't bother looking. If you can't do anything about it, if it just makes you miserable looking at it, there's no point in looking at it if there's nothing we can do. But we can do something about it. We can, remove, for one thing, our own stories that we're laying on top of what suffering's already there, and start dismantling that. And so a lot of our self-loathing speech is that story we're making up. That's not true. And then we turn around and do it to other people. We exaggerate their negative qualities. We exaggerate their positive qualities, and then we can't handle them when those positive qualities don't prove to be entirely always there. So, all right, well, we're getting to the end. Ooh, this watch is wrong. All of a sudden I had a real panic there. I thought, oh my goodness, y'all are very kind. All right. So I really encourage you to write down who you want to be, to think about that, and then to also notice your self-care, whether you're giving yourself, all those things about the person you want to be, if you're treating yourself that way. not to beat yourself. I'm not even treating myself that way. You know, we have to watch our minds. Okay, so we're gonna do a brief meditation, because that's my job. Okay, so again, just try to sit up straight. Now, you can just start with thanking yourself for following through on your decision to come here this morning. You showed up, you came, you participated. You can feel good about your efforts to work on your mind. We rejoice, and everybody else in the room has been working on their minds. So now imagine that you're surrounded by all living beings, your family, your friends, your pets, all those who are close to you. Imagine them sitting around you. And they're surrounded by all the beings that exist. We talk a lot about our suffering states of mind, how hard life is, this truth of suffering. And that just like us, our loved ones feel the same way. All sentient beings are facing the same truth of suffering. But allow compassion to arise for yourself. Think how wonderful it would be if I were free of all suffering for now and forever. You can imagine this compassion as a radiant light at your heart. It fills your heart and spreads to your entire body, filling it with loving kindness. The radiant light extends beyond your body, completely enveloping you. And it spans, completely enveloping all the people that you love. And it expands out to all the people that you know. just expanding out further and further. And all suffering beings are surrounded by this loving kindness, this light of compassion. Then you can draw the light back into your heart. A tiny golden seed in your heart. This compassion is always alive within you. And just dedicate your effort to cultivate compassion, to cultivate gentleness, kindness, and whatever benefits from your effort arise, they spread out to benefit all beings until there is no suffering. So thank you for your time. The Buddha said that we have Buddha nature because of this compassion. And we all have this seed of compassion.